With elevations as low as 1,300 feet, the Bitterroot Mountains boast coastal flora and soaring cedar trees, then climbs above 10,000 feet to showcase sharp ridges and alpine lakes. In the summer, the landscape feels alive. Birds chirp and mosquitoes buzz. Wildlife roams. Haze drifts between peaks, and berry picking is abundant. And in the winter, snow-covered rocks sit stoic in the middle of icy rivers, frozen drifts, snow falling to make the sky match the hills. There's ample space for adventure in the Bitterroot Mountains. All it takes is a little willingness to go out there and find it.
Funding for Outdoor Idaho is made possible by the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore and Bettis family legacy of building the great state of Idaho, by the Friends of Idaho Public Television, by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
You got it? Ready?
The Bitterroot Mountain Range runs more than 300 miles along Idaho's diagonal border. And on one end of it,
Hunter, you doing yours? Come on.
you can see the range while riding on two wheels.
All right.
Yeah, the Hiawatha identifies with the Bitterroots, and this is the start of it. From the top end, this is the start of it.
All right, we're going.
The route of the Hiawatha is a former rail line. It came about in the early 1900s when Midwest Company, Milwaukee Road, decided it was high time to expand westward. A challenging feat, building a route through the Bitterroot Mountains.
When they were building all the tunnels, they would work from both sides. And the engineers would try to sit there and make sure that they were working it correctly. So you had a team on the Montana side and a team on the far side, on the Idaho side, both digging through to come together and meet in the middle.
The line was finished in 1909 and was about $200 million over budget. But within a year, a natural disaster would derail everything.
August 1910 was called the Big Burn. It was the largest fire in American history. What was terrible about it is that it consumed 3.5 million acres in the United States and 1.5 million acres in Canada. Unfortunately, the trail opened in 1909. In 1910, they had the fire, and the railroad just watched what was their dream of harvesting all this lumber go up in smoke in 3 days.
After that, the railroad had a series of bankruptcies, reorganizations, and tried to reinvent itself again and again until 1980 when the last train passed through. Then, in 1998, the Bitterroot route reopened for another purpose.
Took the old railroad and those areas where the railroad used to exist, a beautiful pathway. And you take out all of the rails themselves or bury the bones and turn it into a trail.
Local business owner Allie Koski and her two sons took a ride down the route of the Hiawatha. 15 miles of railroad turned into a hiking and biking trail. And for Allie, it was a first.
I definitely did not expect the first tunnel to be as long and dark and wet as it was. So I'm glad I had a light for that, and also glad I have a change of clothes. But they were beautiful and so cool in temperature, so it was nice to go from the bright sun to the dark tunnels and have that variation on the trail.
There's 10 tunnels, 9 that you ride through, and then there are 7 sky-high trestles. And the first tunnel here is 1.661 miles long. That's our longest tunnel. It's the second longest tunnel on the whole path of the Hiawatha.
They were just pitch black. Some tunnels were really short and you didn't really need a light. But the one right there was 1.5 miles long, so you needed a light.
Went through the last tunnel, it gets really wet in there and there's just lots of mud, and I decided to just full speed through this one this time. And that just got mud all over.
The tunnels and the trellises were both really amazing, but what I didn't expect were the little pockets that you could kind of detour off on and turn it into a whole day trip. So you could walk down to the creek or walk up to the trestles and just see little pockets that weren't so common.
last year had about 70,000 people ride the trail. In most seasons, we'll have 60 different countries represented and all 50 states and the numerous areas from Canada.
It's weird to think I live not even 30 minutes away, and there's people from all over the US that come here just for this trail.
There are some really rough areas of terrain along the Bitterroots, and that's something that makes it special. I think people come to get away and to enjoy this scenic nature and maybe the quietness and know that their phone's not going to be ringing and things like that. So to me, the Bitterroots is kind of a definition of space. It separates Idaho and Montana. They are a little bit rugged and they're pretty steep. The elk, the deer, the flora, the fauna all kind of comes together.
And I think that people take a lot of pride in it being like our own little corner of the Bitterroot Mountains. And so knowing that it's affiliated with the greater chain, it just is exciting to me to learn that there might be more if I kept traveling down and get to see more that Idaho has to offer.
Depending on who you are, biking the Bitterroots can look very different.
My name is Lance Gines. I'm the owner of Into the Horizon Adventure Motorcycle Tours and Rentals in Boise, Idaho. This segment of motorcycling is called Adventure Touring, and so we're riding big dual sport motorcycles. And so we pack all of our gear for doing 7 to 9 day tours and camp off of the motorcycles.
In this case, Lance and his crew are tackling the Magruder Corridor, 101 miles of undeveloped dirt road that separates the Frank Church Wilderness from the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness. From Elk City, Idaho to Darby, Montana, the road winds through a primitive landscape.
Roads like the Magruder Corridor, to me, is really the iconic adventure touring road of any roads that I've ridden anywhere in the world, because it's difficult, but it's not too difficult. It's not the type that's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is too much, I'm not going to ride this. You just really kind of enjoy it.
For me, like, Father Time is ticking away. So I'm 64 this year, and this level of adventure riding, there's a certain amount of physicality, and I can't do this forever, so I need to do it now.
So I think it's a way for us to kind of get back to, I guess, our wild nature. There's something about people that I think causes them to seek out adventure, and obviously it's also a way to get away. You get, so many people are in the city kind of wrapped up in the rat race, and you need a break, you need some downtime.
It doesn't take very long on a motorcycle trip for people to really become good friends, because we all have to help each other out and work together. We work as a team.
The Magruder Corridor has an interesting history. It began as the Southern Nez Perce Trail, and over time, trappers and traders began using it. Then, in 1863, Lewiston merchant Lloyd Magruder was returning from Montana when he was murdered by 4 men hired to protect his pack string.
To me, it's just part of the history of the West. There was so much murder that went on back in the early mining days that this was just another one. Back when I first started, the whole thing was very wooded. Unfortunately, through wildfire, a fair amount of the Magruder has burned over the last 15 years or so, but the experience has only changed because the different wildflowers that bloom every year that have been sprung because of the fires and stuff are pretty amazing. Last year, the fireweed was just unbelievable. The whole mountainsides going across here were purple, and they're just absolutely beautiful. The bear grass kind of looks like a very large Q-tip bend or something. It's pretty spectacular for sure.
It's going good. It's been a good time. Some rocky sections, some loose sections, but it's all good. It's pretty epic. You get up to these high mountain areas. You got these incredible views you can see for, hundreds of miles.
It's a little bit of everything as far as how mountainous country can be. You get a lot of everything in here. And so I just really appreciate nature in all forms. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love Idaho, is it's so diverse, and we see so many different landscapes all within a single day, you know. But this across here is pretty special and pretty unique.
The outskirts of the Bitterroots can be just as rugged as the range itself. To the west lay the Selway Crags, a granitic cluster of low-elevation mountains dotted with sparkling lakes. Hard to get to and hard to leave, this isolated landscape offers a sense of solace to its seemingly few visitors.
Going up on those peaks is really spectacular, and you can just see for miles in every direction. It makes you feel unimaginably small. And I think that's what is most important for me, is just you feel so small underneath all of this. And I thought that was fantastic. That's not something that I think you can get any other way.
There's a little bit more risk that you have to consider, so stakes are a little higher, but the payoff and the views are unmatched.
The crags sit south of the Lochsa River and north of the Selway River. The steep mountains, boulder fields, and dizzying drop-offs make for a challenging off-trail hike.
There's really not more than 5 feet of flat ground at a time. Like at any time you were either going downhill or you were going uphill. So, something may only be 1.5 miles away or less, but the amount of time that it actually takes you to get there between, backtracking, zigzagging down, climbing down stuff, climbing up stuff, trying to find a route where it's not just a sheer drop, 1,000 feet, whatever, it takes a long time to get anywhere.
The mountains don't hold back. They're super steep, lots of deep valleys, but then when you get down into the valleys, they're pretty lush and there's streams, there's still snow melting. It was awesome because we were scrambling across these rocks and then looked down and there's this plethora of grouseberries there. I think the trip took us a little bit longer than we had planned because we kept stopping and having berry breaks, and that's totally fine. Love it.
You see this mountain and you're like, I climbed down that and I climbed up this and I actually went that far. And you can see Montana from where you're standing.
From Legend Lake to Legend Peak, to views of Three Links Lake, Cove Lake, and Fen Mountain, hiking in the Selway Crags offers up 360-degree panoramas. And for those willing to get them, an alpine dip awaits at the end of the day.
You can't be at a lake like this and not jump in. We decided the best way to kind of wake up after, the post-hike sleepies is to go and jump in the lake. It felt amazing and wakes you up. There's always a trade-off when you're in nature. Sometimes in order to get those views, you're gonna also have to battle the friendly neighborhood mosquitoes. That was a challenge, but it's still totally worth it. Just come prepared. Wear your bug nets.
I've always wanted to go backpacking. I felt it was a little bourgeoisie, maybe, but I'm really grateful that I did. I pulled the trigger, and this is the best place I possibly could have gone for my first time. I mean, it's really spectacular out here.
Now, if you want the mountains, but without the isolation, there's a place to go in the Bitterroots that'll give you just that.
Lost Trail has been around since 1938. That was the first year that people started skiing up here on this pass. It's right on the Continental Divide. We're just on the west side of it, and by being up that high, you get really good snow conditions and good moisture.
1 mile down the road from Lost Trail is Chief Joseph Pass, named for Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce tribe. Also located on the Idaho-Montana border, the area has become a playground for winter enthusiasts.
Chief Joseph Pass is a free cross-country ski area. We operate off of grant funding and donations that's managed by the club as well as in a partnership with the Forest Service, and then that contracts out with Lost Trail across the way. Most people that are willing to come out this far are out to just kind of enjoy the day, and it seems like there's a lot less tension and conflict when you get a little more space to yourself. Today we were skate skiing. It's just been kind of a hobby that you can carry on into any stage of life just because it's so low impact. And there's just something that gets addicting about moving that fast on snow. But we do oscillate between this discipline and then also the more traditional, what we call classic skiing. And we have a good sampling of both of those types of skiers up here at Chief Joe. It's something a little bit meditative, that kind of like just bringing all of your attention, because you are moving so fast. And I mean, if you look at these things, there's not much there to stand on. Just the requirements for balance and flow, and when you start to hear the snow kind of crunch under there, it kind of dampens out all the sound. It forces you to focus. It just forces you to just kind of come into yourself, and it just really restores your peace. At least it does for me.
With a mountain range splitting 2 states, the best way to access the grandest views of Idaho's Bitterroot Mountains is by climbing Montana's tallest Bitterroot Mountain, Trapper Peak.
We can see up the Bitterroot Valley all the way to Missoula, really, and we could see farther if it was not so hazy today. We could actually see all the way to the Mission Mountains, 100 miles north of here. And we have the length of the Bitterroot Range right here, and then all around us we have all these surrounding mountain ranges, the Pioneers and the Beaverheads in southwestern Montana, the Bighorn Crags in Idaho, and I think we could probably see the Selway Crags if I were to turn around. Just a fantastic view.
Over 10,000 feet, Trapper Peak rises above Montana's Bitterroot Valley, tempting seasoned hikers with its lofty summit. While the top is certainly the destination, the journey to it is equally breathtaking.
There's hundreds and hundreds of alpine lakes in the area, and of course they were scoured out by the glaciers. We went by a few on the way up, and they're pretty spectacular places, and they're usually separated by waterfalls because they're in hanging valleys that were created by the glaciers.
As part of the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness, Trapper Peak and the surrounding land has loyal defenders who believe in the value of the land in its untouched state.
The wildlands aren't just important for us, they're important for all the ecosystems, the plants and animals. I think it's really important to preserve as much of it as we can, and that seems to be getting harder and harder. But we keep trying to preserve things. We don't always win battles, but I think, as someone said, it's not the battles that you lose that are so bad, it's the battles that you don't fight.
From the snowy peaks of the Bitterroot Mountains comes runoff, destined for the Selway River.
Yes. For me, as a river guide, as an outfitter on the rivers are the arteries. It's the lifeblood of any mountain range.
The Selway is a 100-mile stretch of free-flowing water that winds through pristine land that's only been tarnished by nature itself.
It's a place of solace, but it can also be a place of endorphins and rushes. It's a protected and restricted river corridor. It transforms from one ecosystem to another. Wildlife, greenery, so much, wildflowers. It's hard to put to words, honestly.
Rafting the Selway River feels remote, and that's because it is. Running through the heart of the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness, isolation and serenity are common themes for those lucky enough to spend a few days here.
There's something really special about being able to sit and just have it be the natural world kind of enveloped in it. Definitely a lot of, self-thinking. Being able to wake up in the morning and sit next to a campfire with like a cup of coffee, just like in the quiet, hearing the rushing waters is really kind of incredible, as simple as it is.
And this feels good. Something just resonates with them again, and it's like rekindling something that's lost in their heart, right?
Tucked within wilderness, the The Selway River was uniquely protected in 1968 as a national wild and scenic river. Only one raft group is allowed to launch each day, and few permits are handed out each year.
I think it's amazing that people had the forethought to protect these landscapes, and I'm really grateful for that. And when you're out here, you understand like this could look a lot different if we didn't do that. So I think wilderness is crucial. This landscape, really steep canyons, rolling mountains, just that classic Idaho character of steep ups and downs and big canyon walls. You know, you go through some older growth forest, some burnt forest, that I think lends itself to understanding the wild character of this landscape and the natural regime of the ecosystem.
You have your firs and your pines, but you see outcroppings of your northwestern cedar, which we were spotting today, and wildlife and birds.
It's just incredibly lush, tons of cedars and yews and lovely little flowers everywhere. And the ecosystem, though, it's also just frigging full of butterflies. I've never been on any river outside of the tropics that had remotely this many butterflies.
Whether you're a guide and you've seen it a dozen times, or a guest on your first Selway outing, the romance of this wild river is undeniably present.
I think it's important for us to have space where we can go and disconnect from the concrete jungles of society and enjoy the landscapes that humans were, meant to enjoy. It's been so amazing to watch the landscapes change so much since we first put in this really narrow, shallow river with pretty heavily wooded areas behind us. And then today we went through like some really tight, narrow canyons with big rock walls around. It's just been so awesome to just watch it all go by. It's like a never-ending wallpaper out here.
And forward two.
But make no mistake.
There we go.
The river's reputation as one of the best whitewater runs in the United States is well deserved.
When the river is high, it's very big and very pushy, and you have to be absolutely on your toes and really knowing how to navigate big, powerful whitewater and punch through big, powerful features. And then when it is low, there's a lot of rocks out there. So it becomes just this technical Tetris mind game.
All forward.
The proximity of those rapids and the characteristics really define the Selway, because at high flows, recovery space is minimal. It's that moose juice, is that crux right there after the confluence that gets people's hackles up, when they want to make sure they understand the flows, know where they're at, and best knowledge of what's to come and the skill set.
Just something about being out in the glory of this very big, complicated thing and having a great time by learning to play by Mother Nature's rules. Like that classic thing, you play by the rules, you get to hang out at the party, and it's an incredible party to get to hang out at.
While white-knuckled rapids might be what some people come for, what they leave with can mean so much more.
Out in the quiet woods with my family, enjoying time together, and also just enjoying time doing things together, maybe just as importantly or perhaps more so.
It's been obviously the craziest rafting I've ever done, and like the most exciting, but also very relaxing at the same time, because like the water feels great and the company is even better, and then just it's just, there's nothing quite like it. Nothing quite having your problems just flow down the river with you.
It's been so fun and so silly. Like everyone is just having a great time fishing or hiking or just riding along in the boats, and it's just been laughing, sit around the campfire at night. It's just, it's been a dream.
I've been on River Time, and then there's Selway River Time. It's just a different time and a place. That river sparkles green, and you're swimming in it, and you feel the sand in between your toes, and Watch that river go by. It's very magical. It's sacred. It just gets in your heart. It gets in your soul. It inspires you. It takes you to a different place. The Bitterroot Mountains, the Selway River. You got to feel it to understand it. You got to live it to understand it.
Funding for Outdoor Idaho is made possible by the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore and Bettis family legacy of building the great state of Idaho, by the Friends of Idaho Public Television, by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. To find more information about these shows, visit us at idahoptv.org.